Okay, welcome everyone to our virtual office hours. And today we have a very timely topic, replacing synthetic food colors or dyes with natural offerings, challenges and opportunities for the food industry. I'm just going to remind everyone that we're going to be recording this session all the way through the Q&A. And then when we start the Q&A, we're going to stop recording so we can have a nice discussion at that point. My name is Olga Padilla-Zakor. I'll be moderating the session. I'm the Seneca Foods Foundation professor and director of the Cornell Food Venture Center at Cornell University. And I have the pleasure to have three invited speakers today that will cover the topic in as much detail as possible in such a short session, but we will have enough time to answer questions. And we'll start in the order that we'll be presenting the speakers, with Professor Alireza Abbaspourrad first. He holds a PhD in organic chemistry. And then in 2009, he joined Harvard University and used microencapsulation techniques to produce structural emulsions and to encapsulate food ingredients for controlled release systems. In 2015, he joined the faculty at Food Science Department of Cornell University, and he has focused on food chemistry and ingredient technology. In addition, for 1 year in 2023 to 2024, he served as Vice President for R&D of Fairlife LLC. He is a very proactive author of more than 300 peer-reviewed publications and holds more than 30 patents. So we're very welcome to have, we welcome Ali to our session this morning or afternoon, depending where you are. And then we have two invited speakers from industry, Jeannette O'Brien. She has more than 25 years of experience in the natural color industry and brings a combination of strategic and technical expertise. She holds a master's degree in food science and an MBA in marketing management. As executive vice president of sales and marketing at GNT, she brings deep industry knowledge and leadership experience to support the company's continued growth in the natural color space. And then we'll finalize with Dave Gebhardt, which is the Senior Technical Director for Sensient Food Colors based in St. Louis, Missouri. Dave has been with Sensient for 35 years, previously leading their operations role and now spending the last 11 years as the Technical Director. Dave's responsibilities include the application side of the business, where Sensient supports customer needs, and the R&D side, where Sensient develops improved ways for their customers to use color. He's a graduate of the University of Illinois with a degree in chemical engineering. Again, welcome our panel, our speakers, and then we will have additional members from the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets to help us with some of the questions. So Ali, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Olga. Do you see my screen? Perfect. So I'll get it started. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a brief, basically, presentation on natural colorant, and I'll start with why we use colorants in food. Most of you already know, but this is just a refresher that we use this in industry to restore color loss during processing, transportation, and more importantly, during the storage of food product. Also, this basically addition of colorant makes food more appealing to consumers, also preserve the identical appearance across the process batches. And there are studies that different numbers that we can get, but one of these studies refer to 9 out of 10 consumers place visual appearance and color above other factors when they shop for the first time. Of course, for the second time, there are different also deciding factor involved. And in fact, we know that how a product looks influences how food and product basically are perceived to taste. So that the appearance is very important. And we've been using in food product, we've been using both natural and synthetic colorant. Synthetic colorant, we call them dyes. They dissolve in water. They're not soluble in oil. And they're manufactured as powder, granules, also liquids. And if you take these dyes and sandwich them around a aluminum salt or other salts, you make them insoluble, you call them lake, and these are oil dispersible that are basically more stable than dyes, and they can be used for fat content products or products that they have fat in them. examples of these synthetic dyes that you get from petroleum is essentially this colorant that you already know, red 40, for instance, natural or FD&C, blue number 1, and these are colorant that we use in products. Other examples are sunset yellow or orange yellow, where they have these azo compound, and this is an exaggeration of, if you have a product without addition of colorant, probably you can guess what you're looking at the lower bottom on the left. This is a Cheeto photo before and after coloring. So we do know if we don't add colorant to certain products, they will not be appealing for consumers. Now, if you look at recent development, especially this year, in April 22nd, we heard that FDA is phasing out petroleum-based synthetic dyes globally in the nation. Basically, they are looking at establishing national standard and timeline for this initiative. They are initiating the process to revoke authorization they already have done for a few, and working with industry to eliminate these synthetic dyes. Now, in May 9, 2025, this year, we also learned that FDA approves, actually fast-track, 3 food colors from natural sources. These are Galderia extract blue, which is a form of phycocyanate. That is a natural blue color that basically used into food product. The butterfly pea flower extract, basically a product that is based on anthocyanin but has a basically very stable natural colorant, and calcium phosphate, which is a white color approved for use in ready-to-eat products. Now, the removing synthetic color is nothing new. In fact, if you look into news and media from 10 years ago, you see many companies pledged. In fact, this was, I have this news from July 2015, that many companies pledged to remove synthetic colorant. And in fact, if we are fair, all CPGs as well as ingredient companies, color houses, they have done a great job in moving toward this direction, replacing them. This came from consumer push and demand that time 10 years ago, and we see this continuation this year as well. And there are a lot of effort, a lot of success by color houses. We have basically that they provide offerings to industry. If you look at the market trend, of course, this data could be also probably adjusted based on the recent development this year, but we see the projection for 2034, where we get to close to $3.5 billion for natural food color market, and this is growing based on what we see in current basically market. However, there are some challenges with natural colorant. If you look at globally, look at all the natural colorant, they are less stable to heat when we do processing for pasteurization or in thermal processes, to light, oxygen, and they have poor chemical stability. They could react, depends on the food matrix, whether they are in beverage or low water activity food products, depends on the processing. They can react during the process, or they can react with some of the food matrix during the storage, and they produce undesirable flavors and colors. And we might not have all the hues possible from natural sources, and in fact sourcing them in a sustainable way could be sometimes challenging, and hands down these are more costly compared to synthetic basically dyes or lakes that we discussed earlier. However, majority of them are safe. They are antioxidant, they behave as an antioxidant, a lot of them, and they also act as, some of them act as preservatives. So there are a lot of benefits in using them, but also there are challenges in terms of instability, sourcing them, and of course the cost, which is always the deciding factor. If I want to share one of these categories, I know you all know about these, anthocyanins, right? These are a class of flavonoids or polyphenols we find in many different vegetables or basically plants. When we say anthocyanin, this is a big class of compounds. There are more than 600 different compounds identified in nature, and we keep identifying more, isolating and characterizing. the challenge with anthocyanin is that they are really pH dependent. The color turns from red all the way to blue, and once we get to basic condition, they can degrade much faster. The color fades and so on. So that's a challenge with anthocyanin, but they have very good antioxidant activity, and they can also use as actives to inhibit oxidation reaction. This is just a structure, and you can basically find them in many different vegetable sources. These are very susceptible to reaction, chemical degradation in aqueous solution, which results in color loss. And their chemical stability, in fact, affected by many parameters: how much oxygen inside the product, what is the temperature, both processing as well as storage temperature, are they exposed to light during the storage, do we have enzymes that are not fully inactivated inside the product, what is the product pH? In acidic they are red, basic they are blue, but also they are much more susceptible to degradation in elevated pH close to basic condition, and neutral pH and basic condition. And of course, food composition. Sometimes some proteins can protect, some proteins can degrade them. And type of acids and salts and minerals, they all affect the stability and longevity of these anthocyanin food products. One example is that in industry that people face challenges is that using anthocyanin in beverages that basically they have vitamins inside. For instance, vitamin C and anthocyanin together formulated whether in ready to drink or powdered basically formulations, they pose a challenge because vitamin C during the processing and during storage could produce some compound, we call them, let's say, radicals. These radicals can degrade anthocyanin and color loss happens. And we know for many products claiming that is fortified with vitamin C is a low-cost approach, but also improve the perceived nutritional quality for consumer. And in fact, is a good way of fortification. But these two together pose a challenge because of the low concentration of the colorant and high concentration of vitamin C, the degradation or color fading could happen. If you look at this slide, what I want to highlight here very briefly is that if you look at this color in the first column, these are swashes of anthocyanin, grape pomace extract, and vitamin C or ascorbic acid solution at two different pHs. On the bottom, you see pH 3 and pH 4. These are stored at 6 degrees C over 19 days. And you can see that same pH 3 and 4, 25 degrees C, storage time for many basically shelf-stable beverages, and basically accelerated condition, which is 40 degrees C. As you can see how much the color changes after the third day, or essentially after the first week when you store this. So the point here is that the temperature affects them, the pH affects them, as well as during the storage if they are exposed to UV light or fluorescent light in on a shelf, they will affect the color stability. The other class of colorant, natural colorant that we all know very well are beetroot extracts or betalain, which comes in red violet, for instance, two different compounds, beta-cyanine and beta-xanthin. Now, if you look, we can get this from beet juice, concentrate, or beet powder. However, they have similarities to anthocyanin. Beta-cyanins also are water soluble. They produce a very nice red color. And in contrast to anthocyanin, the red color is stable throughout the pH. You remember for the anthocyanin, we said at acidic condition or beverages, for instance, acidified beverages, they are red color, but once they get to pH 7, they change the color becomes blue. For instance, if you have a cupcake and the frosting has a red color from anthocyanin at the interface of cake and the frosting because change of a pH happening over the shelf, or gradually the color of anthocyanin changes. And we see that in some of the products. So beta-cyanine, which is extracted from beet, they have a stable color hue across the pH. However, they are very labile and unstable towards light and heat, and they degrade very quickly against heat or thermal process. That's why we see them more in frozen desserts and low temperature products that they are kept or stored inside opaque packaging, or at least packaging that they are not basically exposed to light. One other probably attribute of these is that they have also a flavor or earthy flavor that basically comes with the extraction. But the color is stable and is used in dairy products, for instance, in yogurts and ice cream. Another category of natural blue colorants are phycocyanin that is found in spirulina and recently approved Galderia, as we discussed. So from whether these red or blue-green algae, you can get a protein-like structure, which is phycocyanin, gives us a very a beautiful, natural, vibrant blue color. But knowing its protein structure, we know that you anticipate that they are susceptible to pH. At different pH, they behave differently. Their stability can be affected by temperature. They can be denatured or aggregated, and light also can damage their color viability. This is just one example on spirulina, which at the pH 3, 5, 7, and 9, you can see after a few hours under UV irradiation how much the color loss happening. And you see that, for instance, acidic beverages pH 3, this is a kind of a mock beverage model. At this pH, we see that the color loss happening. So these are challenges that we have. But Galderia, that recently approved, has much higher thermal stability and acid stability. Another blue colorant that is basically approved is genipin. In fact, this is extracted from a fruit, Genipa americana, in South America. And if it's reacted with something like glycine or amino acid, it produces a nice blue color, which has much higher stability and protein-based blue colorant. This is Jaguar blue or genipin glycine, that this is the main molecule extracted from a Genipa americana. And we talk about all of these water-soluble natural colorants. I just want to spend 3-4 minutes maximum on a colorant that are basically oil-soluble. Some of these colorants come from vegetables. We have more than 700 different carotenoids. We call them carotenoids pigments, that they are oil-soluble. They have a structure that look like fatty acid. They have conjugated double bonds, and they are good for basically coloring food product that they have fatty acid content or oil, something like butter, margarines, or cakes, or milk products, or soft drinks. Now, if you look at these are just, just show you the example, the structure, that there are similarities between them. Curcumin from turmeric, Bixin or Bixin, I'll talk about these two that we get from annatto. Beta carotene or other type of basically carotenoids, we can get them from marigold, for instance, such as lutein. These are all extracted from vegetables and plants that we know of, and the majority of them, they have approval. And the way that we incorporate them in food products is that they can be integrated into oil matrix, and sometimes the oil can be emulsified to be integrated into food products. So I have only 2 more slides. This slide just example of annatto, which we know we've been using it for many years to add and color cheddar cheese to make it orange. Annatto is taken from this, basically the coating of these seeds. You can actually get annatto to color dairy or baked products. This is found in South America, Central and South America. It has 2 main actives, Bixin and Norbixin, at the coating of these seeds. When you wash it with alkaline solution, for instance, and you can get basically through saponification, you can get annatto extract to be both water soluble or oil soluble. And again, in cheese industry, we know that we have been using it for many years, but also it has usage in many other different products in dairy as well as baked products. The last example I want to share with you briefly here is turmeric. Again, it's a main active is curcumin. It has a very low oil solubility, but is sufficient to be able to be incorporated in food products. Also, we do see this in mustards, in pickles, and curry powder. And in fact, the challenge with curcumin is low oil solubility or its solubility in general, but also similar to many other products or fatty-like products that they have conjugated system or unsaturated structure, they're unstable to light, and they're susceptible to oxidation. Sometimes they cause basically a flavor, so they are not very stable against light. And in terms of products, these are used in, again, a wide range of oil containing products such as dairies, baked products, dry mixes, and cereals. So I'll stop here and I'll let other two colleagues from industry, Dave and Jeannette, tell us more basic examples and more about the advancement that they have been doing in their organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alireza Abbaspourrad. And Alex just put in the chat the link to the Title 21 of Code of Federal Regulations, Part 1, Part 73, that has the listing of exempt a natural, what we call natural, there's no definition of natural, food colors approved by FDA. So Jeannette is going to tell us a little bit more about how the industry faces with these challenges and what are the offerings and possible solutions. Jeannette?
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Gotta hit share.
Share, yep, that was the one I forgot.
Okay, great.
Good now? Excellent. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Olga and team, for inviting us today. We appreciate it. Just have a quick, maybe 10-minute overview, a little bit about natural colors, how they look, how they work, and then we're happy to answer more specific questions, because given the time constraint, it's hard to go into a lot of detail, but just a real quick, just 2 slides on GNT. So just so everybody kind of has an understanding, ever since our foundation in 1978, GNT has been focused on creating plant-based ingredients for the food and beverage industry, investing in a healthier future for people and planet. We're proud to say we're among the top global color suppliers. For our North American customers, we have state-of-the-art production and warehouse facilities just outside Charlotte, North Carolina, where we've invested significant resources to increase local inventory and improve supply chain capabilities. And this location also has a customer experience center featuring culinary innovation and technical workshop spaces to enhance collaboration and problem solving with our customers. We've always been at the forefront of natural color innovation by continuously creating value-added solutions, having a clear mission to keep on pioneering in the creation of plant-based sustainable ingredients. Having a vertically integrated supply chain has always been key to our success and part of our core strengths. And we've spent years building a strong integrative supply chain that supports full traceability. We do offer comprehensive support services as well to help you achieve the best possible results. And we look forward to working with customers to understand applications and support their transition to natural colors. So as Ali mentioned, the raw materials that we're using for our plant-based sources can come from all different types of fruits, vegetables, seeds, minerals. Typically, as Ali mentioned, what you're going to find in industry is the main yellow or orange colors are going to come from things like turmeric, pumpkins, carrots, peppers. Your anthocyanin-based colors are going to come from things like black carrots, purple carrots, berries, blueberries. You could have different red potatoes, sweet potatoes, or beets. And then your blues are typically going to start with something like a spirulina source or the Galderia, and then you're going to be adding on those pinks or yellows to achieve the greens or the lavenders that you may need. The clean label trend that we're seeing now that's being pushed is not necessarily new. There's a lot of categories already using natural colors today. Most prevalent is probably beverages, dairy products, confections, and those better for you brands. What's challenging now is the new regulatory landscape that's been pushing companies to do this on a fast track. So this is similar to what we've seen happen in the EU many years ago. And when you're starting to think about the transition to natural, there's many factors to consider. And of course, supply chain and raw material availability is just one of those. Typically, the fruits and vegetables will be purposely grown. So that means they will be grown and harvested at the ripeness of their pigment strength, or when we feel they're going to be the most concentrated. That's in contrast to something where you may harvest a color and then have it ripen on the truck and be ready for a supermarket. Working directly with farmers helps ensure quality and sustainability. And processing methods converts these raw materials to concentrates using physical water-based means like chopping, extracting, separating, evaporation. And then if a new raw material needs to be approved to fill a color gap, this would then go through your FDA food color additive petition process, which can take millions of dollars and years of background scientific data. So it's not always as simple as just saying, hey, I think this color could provide a new shade for the industry. Why aren't they using it? It may be changing in the upcoming regulatory landscape, but up until now, anything new does have to go through that FDA color additive petition process. If we're looking in the US, the FDA doesn't officially use the term natural colors. Per FDA definitions, the only natural color is the color normally present in the product. So the easiest and most simple example, which maybe you've heard already, is that if a strawberry juice is used to color a strawberry flavored yogurt, then this would be considered a natural color per se, and you would label that as strawberry juice. By contrast, if the same yogurt was colored with a juice from a red potato, this would be considered a color additive, and thereby your purpose or function of the color must be labeled, and therefore on the ingredient deck, you would then see vegetable juice for color. Color additives fall into two main groups. I think Ali just posted the link to the CFR for the exempt from certification categories. So there's two main classifications: your certified colors, which are your FD&C, and then your colors exempt from certification. And this is where anything plant-based, along with colors from sources like animals or minerals, would also be found. Within that exempt from certification category, you could even break it down. You could say there's formulated colors, which would be more pigment extracted colors like your beta carotenes, maybe your carmines, titanium dioxides. And then you could have things more that would be coloring foods, and this would be more from edible fruits, vegetables, or plant sources. If you're looking at the supermarket and you're picking up a bottle, you may see some of these common labelings. So there are 27 FDA approved color additives that are exempt from certification. This is just an example of what you may see on a supermarket on the back of a label. So typically things from fruits or vegetables would be labeled generically, so fruit juice for color or vegetable juice for color, but you could list what they're made from. So if the color was made from carrots, you could write carrot juice. Typically things from algae, spices, or seeds, you would label what that raw material source is. So you would say it's from spirulina, from beta carotene, from turmeric, and then you would say for color afterwards. Color stability often depends on factors like pH, heat, shear, fat content in the formulation matrix. Ali reviewed this quickly as well. So what's important to understand is that there's no system-specific approach is essential, because a color that works well in one application may not work in another. So for example, a black carrot concentrate in a sports drink will give a nice bright red color, while using in a high pH milk, that would shift purple, as we learned from Ali, and then it would not be stable. So the takeaway for R&D teams is that a more holistic formulation approach must be considered when you're thinking about the ingredients, the processing, and the storage that's required when you're thinking of moving from artificial to natural. We can provide support with color matching and stability testing using customer-specific formulations, but industry also uses internal model formulations and stability testing methods, including accelerated test methods that will help you better understand the behaviors and stability or sensitivity of certain plant-based colors in specific applications. And this leads to more guided conversations around which color could work best for your application. So this is an example of how of just two color options that could be looked as a replacement for Red 40 in a beverage and in a gummy. So in a beverage, you have your sports drink, it's like a pH 3. Your Red 40 dosage may be around 0.006%. With option A and option B, you're looking at more 0.05 to 0.1%. So you will have color differences, dosage differences. Red 40, maybe usually around a factor of 10, but it can change. What's important to understand is that there is no standard concentration for plant-based colors. So the concentration for an anthocyanin-based color may be different than a carotenoid-based color. That would be different than a color from spirulina. And really, the concentration is dependent on the raw material source and the processing methods from the individual company that you're getting the color from. So when you're looking to replace something like a red 40, there may be some trade-offs. Do you want an exact color match, like option A, or something that's very close but could be more cost effective? So something to think about when you're looking at your replacements. Do you have any flexibility? And if so, where could you be flexible on? So I know there were a lot of questions around how do colors look in certain applications. So I thought I would just show you some examples of like actual products made with natural colors, and talk a little bit about the considerations. So I just pulled 3 examples because I think they came up in the questions ahead of time. But when looking at an application, there's different considerations you need to think about when choosing the right color for your product. Gummies, for example, pH is going to be a big factor. Time and temperature of adding the color when you're doing processing, the temperature or method of depositing, what's your packaging? Do you have an opaque or transparent package? And lastly, are you making like a vitamin gummy where nutrients or vitamins could brown over time, and then that could affect your color after a longer shelf life? If you're looking at something like snacks, the considerations may be slightly different. So you may also need to think about light exposure. How is the snack packaged? But you may need to think about, are you dry blending the color with other seasonings, or are you adding the color via an oil slurry? Is the particle size of the color in your seasoning mix important? Do you want to see the color particles, or do you want to have the color homogeneous with the other seasoning blend ingredients? And then are there any other colorful ingredients that you may need in your formulation that would influence your end application's color? And then lastly, for something like an ice cream or a dairy product, this would also maybe apply to yogurts. What's your pH? So are you making, is your pH is typically higher? You'll know that any of your anthocyanin-based colors will shift toward more blue or purple. So pH is a big consideration. Your fat content will also change. So some carotenoid colors can shift more yellow with higher fat contents. Is your color being added directly to your milk base, or are you adding your color via some sort of syrup that's already been processed and packaged? And lastly, light exposure. Are your ice creams in a scoop shop where you're going to have light exposure for days, or is it in a carton where you may not have any light? And then overrun. Color intensity will be affected by overruns. So the higher, the more air in your product, the more pastel the colors will become. Heat and light are the main external factors which can be accelerated to predict performance on a shelf. We have experience testing products in various model formulas to help establish accelerated stability test protocols. Typically, the higher the dosage, the deeper the color, which increases your protection from, for example, light over a shelf life in a beverage, for example. Accelerated stability testing also provides a quick indication of your color performance. However, if your parameters change in your formulation or your processing or your packaging, so may the color performance. So we would always recommend when you're doing some color stability, you want to make sure the rest of your product is already kind of set and formulated, and then you could do your stability testing on the final application. This is just an example of a beverage with one color, just to show you some of the methods that you could use. So for example, you could look at the same color and the same dosage at 2 different pHs. You could look at it under heat and light, which would be the binder. You could look at it just in a hot box, so no light. You could look at it in ambient conditions, or you could look at it in ambient dark conditions. And so depending on what you're doing, you may want to decide which factor would work best for your testing methods. And lastly, just some summaries on some challenges and opportunities. For those of us suppliers in the industry, this is not unprecedented for us. The unprecedented part is the speedy timeline that's been put on industry, but we've been here before with transitions in EU and companies who've converted to natural in the Canada and in the US in the last 25 years. And we're here to support the industry as we move through the changing regulatory landscape. For many decades, we've been supporting successful brands, launch natural colors due to just consumer clean label demands. Conversion to natural is absolutely possible, but it is a process that requires time to vet new formulas and planning supply chain volumes to ensure availability. This photo shows an example of yellow 5 match and gummies with different raw material sources. So the conversion is a multi-phase process that just requires planning, testing, and market alignment. And it's just, again, not typically a simple swap across all product categories. The shift away from synthetic does open doors for new raw materials to be approved or to be used in the industry. It allows for improved technologies and innovative processing methods. It's also an opportunity for industry to leverage science and innovation to fill any gaps that are currently out in the market, as well as to improve cost efficiency and scale sustainability. Spirulina is an example from the past of what we've had available, and now we're looking forward to the new natural sources where we can continue to focus on performance, commercial viability, scalability, and sustainability. And lastly, manufacturers have the opportunity to build transparency and trust with consumers. So packaging claims is one way of communication, but this can go way beyond. Brands can provide clear communication on sourcing, processing, and performance through storytelling, which can build consumer confidence and connections to your brands and products. So that was it. Thank you very much. I appreciate this time, and I'm looking forward to answering more specific questions after the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannette. Excellent presentation. And now we'll go with Dave. Dave, you have the podium.
Okay, well, I'm going to start. I'll just start here. Let's go. So,
all right.
So appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to you. Ollie and Jeannette have talked a lot about the different topics that we've got, so I'm not going to refresh a lot of that so that we can get ourselves to the question and answer afterwards. As Jeannette mentioned, the pace at which this is going right now is unprecedented right now in our industry with this. A lot of what we're talking about right now is really based upon legislation that's coming out from different states. And so are we on the state regulatory activity? Okay. So this is a slide that we kind of share with a lot of our customers. Ollie talked about the FDA and what the FDA is doing. But what's really driving this through our industry right now is state regulatory activity. What state of West Virginia earlier this year passed legislation which banned all artificial colors effective January 1st, 2028. That has had essentially a seismic change across our industry. Even some of the largest manufacturers that are out there have communicated that there's just not the capability of having one supply chain which services West Virginia and another one that services the entire US, the rest of the US. So customers are accelerating their push for natural color conversion for this. But we don't see this legislation kind of slowing. So while West Virginia has passed, at the same time, Texas also passed legislation requiring a significant warning label on any products that contain artificial colors. So the message that we're getting from our customers is this is no longer a Republican or a Democratic issue. This is a bipartisan issue, which is driving their need for a natural color conversion. So with this, kind of what we look at is when we talk about natural color conversion, what is it that the consumer is really looking for with this? Sometimes when we talk to a customer, what they're saying is, well, customers are going to accept a more muted version of these products because they expect that it's natural colors. But a lot of the research that we've been able to do over the last number of years really kind of goes back to what Ali said in terms of customer perception and what they're looking for. Customers are looking for appealing color, which drives a improved expectation of flavor. Basically, we're seeing 6% increase that brighter colors give in purchase intent. Liking is increased by 5%. So the data that we're seeing from consumers is that we need to be able to be providing bright alternatives. This is a couple others as well. So oftentimes people will say that the EU customer is accepting of a more muted color with it. The data we have shows that that's not the case. We did on the left, a online test, concept test with customers, and option B, which had the more brighter colors, had by far the largest purchase intent and the overall liking. So this is consumers saying that they're looking for vibrant colors. When we look at product characteristics, what are the characteristics that customers look for? The ones that have the highest scores are that it has an appealing color, that it looks appetizing, that it looks tasty. So the appearance of the color or the appearance of the product is really important for this. The fact that it's made with natural ingredients, it's important. That it looks natural is important, but it doesn't carry the same level of importance as a brightly colored product. So when we look at where Sensient's going with this, similar to where Jeannette's team is looking at this as well, we look at it from breeding and cultivation. So most of these natural color sources are what we would refer to as orphan crops. So in other words, these are not botanicals that are being grown for the primary food sources. They're being grown for their color content. One of the things that's exciting in our industry is that while we've been using natural colors for years, the work, the evaluation of these colors, the breeding that's being done has increased substantially over the last 10 years. So what we're seeing is brighter and brighter, more vibrant colors coming out continuously as we go. We look at purification and extraction technologies. So when you're growing a botanical, the amount of color that's in that botanical is key in terms of being able to drive the cost for the product as well as driving vibrancy. But how we can purify that and extract it allows us to be able to get that into systems which help our customers to be able to use our product. And that's where we look at formulation systems. We say kind of at Sensient that, we are still looking for new color sources, but the reality is as an industry, I think we have a good understanding of what a lot of the good natural color sources are. What we're trying to do is we're trying to be able to get these in forms that allow them to be able to be used for our customers a lot easier. Our customers have become used to using synthetic colors, which are very flexible, very easy to be able to use. And what we're focusing a lot of our efforts on is trying to get those natural colors to perform as close to a synthetic color in their application as we can. We do also look for novel color sources and technologies, so we're always on the lookout for something that's new. The last slide that I've got really kind of talks about what we do with this. We look at novel color sources, some examples within Sensient, the butterfly pea flower extract, our avalanche, which is how we look at replacing titanium dioxide. Vertifine is a natural green, which blues and greens, quite honestly, are probably some of the biggest challenges the industry has. So our Vertifine, Sienna, which is brown technology. And then just, real quick, we look at how we stabilize the product. We believe very strongly in particle size control and how we manage particle size within our products, because as color is a representation of the light that's being reflected back, if we can manage the particle size, it can help us with the intensity of those colors. So given that we're probably about 15 minutes away from ending the session, I'm going to kind of stop here quickly so that we have some time for Q&A. Okay.
Thank you very much, David.